We ready, boss? All right. How's everybody feel? Good? Okay. So you can use the structure of the meditation that we've done the past 2 days for each of your monthly meditations. You can also use it for a lot of your connection to various energies. So the process is always going to be clear your vessel, root, connect, fill. Okay? As you guys progress through your journey in this side of Planet David, I'll show you a little bit more and more fancy ways of doing these things. The Taoists, I used to make a joke to err is human. To complicate things, you need a neuro-linguistic programmer. But let me tell you, some of these Chinese metaphysical schools got nothing on NLP when it comes to complicated stuff. And that's part of the problem, is that as some of you who've been around in our orbit long enough have realized, that the most powerful shit is usually simple. But people often feel the need to add pinstriping and bells and whistles. And maybe that's human nature in terms of always trying to make things more complicated than they really are. Or it's an attempt to keep people from actually learning the real secrets, weeding out the people who are maybe unworthy in other people's eyes. I don't do that. I let God sort that shit out. All right? So if you're here, you earned it, right? But one of the things that I came, and a revelation that I came to many, many years ago was, if this stuff was so complicated and there were so many steps to it, nobody would have ever discovered it. Nobody would have ever discovered it. So it has to be at its most basic, simple, and something you could actually stumble onto. That makes any kind of sense. And then a few years later, this guy with the hat comes stumbling in and says, "This is what my teacher said." I was like, "Oh, really?" And that's kind of, again, I have little algorithms and rules of thumb that I operate by, and I'll share my little Davidisms with you from time to time. But remember, powerful stuff is always the simplest. Complicated stuff can be powerful, but it's almost always way more specialized, and therefore only good in a certain situation. So, we're going to begin our journey into energies that are more subtle. Now, we've been working with energy all along. We've just been calling it different stuff. So one of the things that has to happen is we need to have a basic understanding of the 5 principles. Now, we all understand fire and air and void and water and metal/earth. We understand that. But when we think of these things, we commonly think of them as literal fire, literal water, literal air or metal. And what we're actually talking about when we start dealing with advanced higher vibrational forces is not the expressions of the elements, but the principles themselves, the idea, if you will, which is actually more important. And if you can connect with the idea, with the principle, then all of the infinite manifestations of that particular elemental force can be accessed. Everything from physical phenomena, like you see the pictures of the shaman, sitting in the fire, or the hunas walking on lava. It's not because they mastered the element of fire, the physical fire. It's because they mastered the fire principle, which is the mother of that expression. And the way that you begin that process is no different than what you did yesterday. You assume a basic physiology, and you wait. And then if it doesn't happen within a certain amount of time, you start adopting more and more characteristics that are similar to the target that you want to connect with. Right? We call these correspondences. And that's all pacing and leading is correspondence. The more, if I want to get in deep levels of rapport with Audrey, the more things I can effect that she has or does, the more rapidly I'm going to attune. It's all the same. And that's what makes it so powerful and profound. Hidden in plain sight. Okay? So the first thing we need to understand is what are the core attributes of each of the elements, because that's where we want to start, the fire principle. And I said yesterday that the fire principle includes light and heat. It has one more attribute that I think might even be slightly meta to that, which is expansion. And this is from Barton. So when we think of the fire element, the fire is always seeking to grow. It's trying to expand and move outward. Heat expands things, right? So when we start thinking about or communing with the fire element, we want to start generating sensations through each of our cortices of expansion, light, and heat. Does that make sense? So remember I told you on day one that there's a progression of phenomenology that happens. When we first begin these processes, it's a purely imagined construct. There's, if I'm in the fire element and I'm in my fire pose, and this is my fire pose. There are other fire poses. There's many correspondences to this, so I want you to understand that. Okay? If I teach you that this is our pose for the fire element, but when you think of fire, the first thing that pops up into your head is this, then that's your fire. Do you understand? Your personal symbology and metaphors supersede the system. Because that is how you do it. That will be the most rapid, organic way for you to connect with these elements. And this is a big deal. Okay? Because a lot of the time that we don't have success with somebody else's system is because that's not how we do it. We're trying to do it their way. Well, other people's ways are great guides, but they're not the authority. Because you all reach a point where the only thing that can teach you is you. You'll run from teacher to guru to teacher and whatever, and they'll tell you, I have the way, and give their little stamp of approval on your forehead, and all of a sudden, you're a certified bodhisattva. Okay, heal the sick. That's not how it's going to happen. Right? So, use systems as guides, but not the authority. Okay? Because you will find people that blatantly disagree. Why? Different human being, filtering the information. Different nervous system. Has a few switches. Some of you noticed that yesterday, right? How many of you, when you're doing your rapport drills, got exactly the opposite of what the other person was sending? But you did it consistently. Now that's statistically significant. Ask the mathematician here, the computer guy. Right? If you get everything diametrically opposite, that's just as statistically significant as getting 100% right. It's showing that something is happening and there's just some kind of weird translation error. Right? And so feedback is always the best approach. Right? If you're getting, and if you were getting the exact opposite, something was happening. You just got to figure out what. That's a different question, isn't it? Then does it work? The first thing is does a change happen when you begin to apply a technique? Don't worry about the scope or the magnitude. Did you get a change? If the technique wasn't valid, you wouldn't get a change. After that, it's just calibration and repetition. Does that make sense? Okay, so so when we think about fire, the first thing is we're going to adopt a very similar process to a lot of the inductions and the meditations that we've done. You'll notice that I say, imagine what something might be like, right? I'll say, fill the room with it. Wrap it around you, breathe it through you. Now, once you begin that process, depending on what your outcome is or what you want to do with the energy will determine other things. So remember that we live in a universe that is holographic in nature and fractal in nature. But just like your brain, your brain is simultaneously hierarchical, literal, metaphorical, and archetypal. For everything you can conceive of, there's a location somewhere in your neurology that mediates that phenomena. Because you have an organic location where that stuff can be accessed, it can manifest in this plane. It's just a little extrapolation. You can believe that or not. But expansion, and also fire is the creative element, and wood is also the creative element, but from a hormonal perspective, the fire element is more akin to the dopaminergic pathways of the brain. And so people who have a strong dopaminergic pathway tend to be very sensation-seeking. They love novelty, they love change, they love creativity, they love transformation, but it's like everywhere. You can always tell a fire person because they don't like clothes either. Like when they come home from work, there's a line of clothes from the door to the bedroom because they're taking shit off as they're getting to the bedroom. Right? They often seem somewhat chaotic because they're everywhere. Right? They have this massive range of interests. Wood people are very creative, very active as well, but they're focused. There's a few key things that they're passionate about, and that's where they'll get along with the fire people. But after a while, they'll look at the fire person as a fucking airhead because they're all over the map. What they'll do is they'll work, they'll go over here, they'll work, and they'll eventually come back to it. Maybe. Maybe. Contrast that with a metal personality. Fire people start all kinds of shit. Sometimes they get them done, sometimes they don't. Wood people start shit and get it done. Metal people / air people start things and keep going until they're finished. And there's a difference, right? If I have to, I don't know if you guys can all see this, but if this is my table and I have to set my table, a wood person will go, okay, here we go, all right. That's good enough. That's done. A metal person will say, oh shit.
Now I understand.
Are you already getting impatient?
Yes.
This is metal.
When are you going to be done?
When I'm finished. I'm exaggerating just a little bit. Not much. Get it? Personalities always change. Yes, they can, but only through some exertion of outside influence or revelation. Well, anything can be a trigger. You got to understand, anything can be a trigger, right? But what I'm saying is, when we look at the characteristics of the elements, you're all made up of all 5 elements, so you all have these to some degree. But there will be a dominance, a general tendency, so to speak. Okay? So metal people often get a bad rap because they drive everyone around them just as berserk as a fire person can, but for the other reason. Right? Can you imagine? And that's why fire melts metal. Get it? Metal cuts wood. Why? Because a wood person is going to say, okay, this is done, but it's rough. So the metal person has to sand it down and make the edges smooth. Fire person just burn that shit up. Yeah, wood people tend to feed off a fire person's creativity, but because fire tends to just keep it wears out the wood person, because the wood person wants to stay on this track and stay focused. The fire person says, "Okay, I'm done. Let's go here. Okay, I'm bored here." Right?
Just wanted to say something because she said, she was asking about if somebody's personality can change, and we see that all the time. You'll see a child who's outgoing and ebullient and just filled with life, and then all of a sudden, they were sexually assaulted, and now they're a wallflower. They're quiet. Mm-hmm. They never make any noise. They don't talk anymore. So they've completely turned into an extreme introvert from being an ebullient, joyous, extroverted child. And
their personality really changed, or
Oh.
are they just dealing with stuff and once they
well, it's a reaction, but it's
Hand her the microphone.
We're having a discussion now instead of being a
Exactly.
But do the personalities really change, or are they just dealing with it for the time being as trauma affecting them?
Okay, so let's chunk up one level to this concept of personality. You don't have one. You have personalities. Personalities, personas, at the risk of quoting Chase, are masks that we wear. They're costumes that we put on. They're literally habits of behavior and thought. That's all they are. But we just happen to have ones that we like better, just like you have a favorite set of shoes or a favorite handbag or whatever. Personalities are just habits of thought and behavior. That's all they are. You acquired them. Your elemental makeup predisposed you to certain characteristics, but your environment shaped them. You are not who you think you are. You are far more. And you're capable of way more. And so this idea of, yes, trauma can change personalities. Lots of things can, because anything can be a trigger. You know, to quote the great and wise Lex Luthor. Some of you need to think about that for a moment. Some people can read Dostoevsky and come away going, I didn't get it. Other people can read the ingredients of a toothpaste bottle and come away with the secrets of the universe. Different strokes, different perceptions, different processes. Anything can be a trigger. Yes, we think of trauma. Spiritual transformations, spiritual revelations happen all the time. Paul, on the road to, was it Damascus, all of a sudden spent his life persecuting the Jews, or persecuting Christians. All of a sudden, poof. He meets Jesus on the road. Probably didn't read the book about meeting Buddha on the road. Right? And poof, all of a sudden, shit changes, right? So, again, getting back to this idea. We want to go beyond, we want to go above personality. But understand that you have the principles and then you have the attributes affiliated with that. Those will come. And we'll show you ways to alchemically work with them. But right now, we want to go higher than that. We want to be able to get that rapport and create phenomena. So the first is, for many of you, this will be as far as you get. For others, you'll rock it to level 3 or something like that. It all really depends on how your nervous system is sensitized. So the first one is purely imaginary. If I immerse myself in fire, or I'm in the center of the fire element, and this is again, remember that stupid finger drill I had you do, right? When you tap into a frequency, or you tap into an elemental principle, you have to imagine yourself in the very center of that infinite universe of the element. And then you have a choice. You can draw the energy in, or you can allow yourself to dissolve into it. Think of an ice cube floating in a glass of warm water. Right? You dissolve and merge and blend, and then you can draw that energy in easier. But you can also suck the energy into the form that you hold. Okay? Right now we're going to focus on the dissolving part, so we can get a deeper feel of it and get a deeper level of attunement to it. Right? And so you go into state, you summon up in your mind as many attributes of the fire element, and our primary archetypes are expansion, light, and heat. You imagine what being in the center of that kind of a universe might be like. This is the magic question. What might that be like? Your neurology is going to answer you, because it can't not. What might you see in that infinite universe of fire? What might you hear? What might you smell? What might you taste? Because when you see what you see, and you hear what you hear, and you smell and you taste what you smell and you taste, there is a feeling that you get. A feeling of pure fire energy, pure heat and light and expansion and whatever else is relevant and pertinent for the fire element for you. And there's a place in your body where those feelings start, where they grow, where they spread from. Point to where you feel it. Notice there's a color, maybe even a series of colors connected to those feelings. What color or colors might that be for you? First impression. Whatever they are, imagine a brilliant ball of that energy floating above your head. Notice how the feelings in your body shift and change as with every breath you take and every beat of your heart. That ball of fire energy begins to grow, begins to expand, begins to fill the entire room, from floor to ceiling, from wall to wall, and all points in between. Notice how it wraps itself around you like an infinite universe of fire. A cocoon, a shield, a suit of armor, insulating you, protecting you from all other elements, real or imagined. All at the same time, flooding your mind, flooding your body, flooding your spirit with every aspect of the fire element your mind, body, and soul most need and want and desire. And when you know you've got it, breathe it through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like hot air or helium fills up a balloon. Anchor it in so fully, so completely, no other forces in the universe can turn it off or take it away. Not even you. When you know you've got it, test it. Try to turn it off, try to take it away. Notice what happens instead. And when you know you've got that, allow that fire energy inside of you to begin to grow, to expand from top of your head to the tips of your toes and all points in between. And then it just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And feel the boundaries of your body begin to expand, to dissolve, until all you are is pure fire. Feel the fire energy floating around you. Feel it moving through you. And just absorb. Really. And when you're ready to come back, begin that energy of that movement towards consolidation. Feel the boundaries of your body begin to re-coalesce. Feel that fire energy beginning to move into the areas of your body that are correspondent to the fire element, the head, the heart, the large intestine and small intestine. Small intestine. Pericardium. And then, as you begin to become more and more embodied, allow any excess fire energy to flow out of your mind, out of your body, out of your spirit, and back into that infinite universe of flame and light and heat and expansion. And when you're more fully balanced in yourself, in all of your bodies, notice how that energy begins to unwrap, form a ball, come back into your body from where it came, and then it goes back to whatever vibrational frequency you drew it from. And when you're done, scan your body. Notice if there's any place that still has an excess charge. And if you notice any place that has an excess charge, move your mind to that area, grab it with your breath, and breathe it out. Anybody get warm? Huh? Chills? Okay. Something changed, right? Okay. So some of you went along for the ride. Some of you just kind of listened, and that's fine, because what I was really doing was describing the process for the camera. Best part is half of this shit you already know. You already know. I've been teaching it to you for once. Pass Sven the microphone.
So what I notice is that also like when my mind sometimes gets distracted or anything, like to have this like playful make-believe ability that even though that I come out of it, to like pull myself into it and then like even go deeper and like having that unlimited amount of like access and ability to tap in whenever I want and however I want to, like to have no limitation of like, oh, I got distracted or anything. And then even to get empowered by that in a way, like, and then to burn away like the distraction, and then to use that energy like and merge to utilize that energy and to to gain more of this fire energy. That's kind of what I was doing.
That's fine. Yeah. Again, the idea is what you do with the energy once you're harmonized and attuned to it is up to you. By the way, fire is always playful. The positive fire is always playful, right? So yes.
It's kind of funny because when you said if there's any excess fire in your body, and the moment I said the fire in my body is optimized, choo, I sneezed. And she said, "Oh, that's cute. God bless you." And I'm like, energy shift.
Right.
That was an immediate energy shift.
Because what will happen is, as you do this, you'll start generating a charge of that energy. And remember, it's not enough to just be able to draw energy in. You have to be able to expel it from your body if it's not harmonious or it's causing a problem. Because excess energy in the body it's like a free radical. It'll find something to do, and it may not be what you want it to do. Right? It defaults to its own natural law. Right? Yes? No, you will wait for a microphone.
Start now.
No. Works too.
So you're saying... So you were saying that like a healthy expression of fire energy is always playful. So, I mean, right, fire, I guess fire out of control.
It's playful, it's creative.
Playful, creative. So, I mean, I guess fire out of control tends to just burn things and be destructive. So in terms of...
It's transformational. So fire is... There is no alchemy without fire.
Yes.
Emotion, negative emotions especially, are negative fire.
So other than just negative emotion in general, what are other indicators to keep an eye out for that might be like a level of like fire that's become pathological?
Not relevant at this point.
Okay.
Because it's not what we're training. Pass the...
So two things. I don't feel like changing. I'm really impressed with this metal setup. I think you are aware that I'm mostly a woody person, but I'm really impressed.
You're a tone 4, that's metal.
Oh, metal. Okay. So my palms, my feet, they feel warm. And I noticed as I turned around, people started drinking water. Once you brought us out of the induction. So just having those feelings and that imagery, what's happening inside the body that it's...
What's level 1? What's the first stage of training? Purely imagine. What's the second phase? Imagine with subjective experience with no measurable change in heat in the surrounding. What's level 3? Physical change in the body. Yeah, pass Trevin the microphone. A microphone. We'll get back to Mandar in a minute. He's been raising his hand like forever. His fire wants to come out. Not my first rodeo.
Anyway, how do you, shock, fire.
how do you practice fire without getting burnt? I mean, I think fire would think you just like burn yourself and get hot and sweaty.
You first start by tuning into the frequency of fire. And remember, we're not talking about the fire element in terms of physical fire. We're talking about the fire principle. And so there's fire already in you. We're just shifting our consciousness to that frequency so we can get more of it and become one with it again. You see, we're always connected to these elements to some degree, but it's the earth principle and the wood principle that organizes and keeps us consolidated. So we want to dissolve into it to get a deeper connection to it. You can't resist yourself. It's when you become fire, fire doesn't hurt fire. Fire blends with fire. You understand? It's impossible to burn something that's already burning. Right? So the idea is to dissolve into this principle and allow the attributes to reinforce the good things and to transform the negative things. Now we'll get into the polarities of the elements later. We don't need to be focusing on anything other than the simple part. Heat, light, expansion. Right? And dissolving into it. Okay? To deepen the connection. If we have trouble making the leap, then we add other things like breathing, posture, mudras, just like NLP. Okay? So, questions on the process? Okay, so let me have Seth, Bernie. I think those are the only two that I'm going to be able to use right now. We're going to break you guys up into groups. We're going to guide, and they're going to guide you through this fire harmonization principle. Actually, let's do it as let's take a 10-minute potty break, come back, we'll do it as a group, and then I'll let you guys practice this individually so you get the repetitions for working with fire. We're gonna do this with all the elements, and then we're gonna come back, and then we're gonna do the same thing, but because we know it really well, we'll tend to go through that part faster. Then we'll start with mudras, just because they're easier and you can do, most people are too lazy to fucking stand, all right? Normally I would have you do the standing posture first. Chill. You're going to get there. You can do that. She's very fiery, by the way. Right? But fire people are almost always small. And they have pointy features. They look like little elves. Most of you know who Ashlyn is. You've met Lillian. Right? They're little energy bugs. They're just all over the place. Right? This woman never stops moving. Right? This one. I won't even talk about her. Fiery people also tend to have very wavy, curly hair. They have a lot of freckles, a lot of fire. Obviously, red hair. Fire, right? All right, so let's go ahead and take a potty break. We'll come back. We'll do another one of the fire merging exercises. 10 minutes should be, again. 10 minutes on the clock. Let's do it.